Everybody, this is George C. Samuels, and you are tuning in to Building Meta Communities with Faiā, a meta community agency. And on this show, I've got a very special guest, Jerome Samuel, also known as Ro. Now, interestingly enough, Ro has the same last name as me minus the S. So we've already connected just through our family names, but we aren't related. Ro joined us actually for our Meta Community Micro Accelerator program earlier on in 2022. And he was one of our students. Not too long after that, he ended up joining an NFT project called Nubbies NFT. And started out as a community manager. I believe now he's a product manager for the project. And today we're just going to be talking about his experiences, sort of the myths versus realities of the NFT space, especially building communities within the space, and his outlook on what he sees occurring over the next, say, 5 years from now. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Ro, how you going?
I'm good. How you doing, George? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. You know, we've obviously been trying to get this session hooked up for a while, so I'm glad we were able to do it. So maybe just to start us off with, what is your current role? What are you most passionate about? And, you know, maybe take us through a little bit of your career history to date.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely would love to answer that and tap a little bit more into that. So as George mentioned earlier, my name is Jerome Samuel, also known as Ro. A lot of people call me Ro. Whatever feels comfortable with, I'm always cool with.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm currently working with an NFT organization by the name of Nubbies NFT. It's a pretty cool concept, a pretty cool community, which I will dive into a little bit. My position there is project manager. It's a pretty loaded position right now, only because it's essentially a startup. So the position, it varies in many ways. I kind of do a lot of things, so to speak. But a little bit about my background and kind of where I guess you could say this passion for building communities comes from, which I didn't even know was a passion of mine until maybe recently-ish, within the past year or so, where I was like fully aware of it. I would say it comes from my mother, because growing up, she was a very religious person, religious woman. So she would always take in people into our home and, provide for them and care for them, in times of need in their lives. And it didn't really make much sense to me because I was still young growing up. I just always saw it as a way that my mom is just a nice person,
Yeah.
But stepping into adulthood, I really realized how powerful it is, because she was able to be a part of that person's life, a positive part of their journey in their lives, which, can inspire and help somebody a lot. So, fast forward to present date, I've worked with and helped build up several different types of communities, from moving companies to making sure the processes were streamlined, clients were happy, jobs were getting done on time. I've helped build and sell some successful e-commerce businesses. And again, making sure the processes are streamlined, customers feel valued and heard. And then I want to say probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I started getting into like trading communities. So I was day trading, and I still do day trade from time to time now, mainly futures. And again, I built up communities where people could come, and it wasn't a massive community, but it was still a safe space for people can come, exchange ideas and be heard, and essentially help each other be the best versions of themselves. So I guess that's kind of how I fell into the crypto world. And then the crypto world led me into the NFT world. And now the NFT world is a combination of investing and also building communities. So it's like a double whammy. And here I am. And it's just such an exciting place to connect people, also providing them with utility, whatever that utility looks like, and really build relationships. And I feel like I kind of rambled on a little bit, but yeah, my role with Nubbies is really to making sure that we have uh, clear goals and objectives set, so that we're not just like scrambling and running all over the place, so that we can be focused and prioritize different goals within our ecosystem that we're trying to achieve for our community to help build the brand and help make the Web3 space, a more inclusive space for all.
Nice. No, that was a very good intro to you and your background, and it was very fascinating to hear about your mother's influence, because I think when it comes to communities, for any of us who have had mothers who, are all about the people, I think that's probably why we do find ourselves in these type of roles or industries now, because I can resonate. My mother was also very much about helping folks, and it was just the norm. And who would have thought that that would have led us to these type of roles now?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And so with Nubbies NFT, when you came in, how far along with their startup were they? Were they in idea phase? Had they already started, growing out their community? Yeah, what stage were they at?
I would say it's probably about a combination of both, because I came across it fairly early. Like the idea was already cemented. I guess you can say the foundations, as far as like the Discord server being built, was in place.
Yeah.
But I would say I came in maybe just a few weeks after its inception, I guess, from idea down onto paper down into taking action in the first stages began, is when I kind of came on board.
Nice. And so, you had gone through our Meta Community Micro Accelerator program. And
Yes.
after that, yeah, that's when I heard that you had landed the role, and I was like really happy to hear. Were you already engaged with Nubbies, before the program or after the program? I guess the question is for people who are, looking to find a role with like a similar startup. How would you go about that? How did it lead to that?
Yeah, so it was after the program. So when I was going through the program, Nubbies didn't even exist in my mind. I didn't even know it was a thing. But what the program did more than anything, because it was an introductory, and of course, like in any journey, there's so many phases that you just have to go through.
Yeah.
But what the program really did is it planted the seeds. It cemented the belief within me, that there are many opportunities out here, and you don't have to know everything. You don't need to know it all, and the program really gave me like that foundation, that something to kind of lean into. And not only that, meeting you and the team has been phenomenal. And like we've spoke here and there after the program, but I see a relationship that has been established, and that program really helped with that. And it's something I always say too. Like, I mean, like people can sit here and say this NFT project has that utility, this utility, but for me, the real utility is the connections that we make with other people that can translate into, ideas, businesses, and even meeting in real life, knowing that we have that kind of NFT Web3 type of connection, I think is very powerful.
100%. Yeah, and well said on that. In regards to the utility side, I think utility is thrown around a lot in this space, and I think that's probably a good segue into my next question. With regards to the Nubbies project and utility, what have you learned about the way that I guess this ecosystem sees and perceives utility versus maybe the actual utility that you see behind the scenes on a day-to-day basis?
That's actually a great question. Yeah, I would say the the NFT ecosystem. So, like, not to come off rude or anything, but a lot of people are very, very impatient. And when it comes to building a brand or a business, or building anything new, it honestly takes time to build something sustainable. And some of the things I've learned is sometimes you have to, and I don't really like to be boxed into a roadmap, but I could see how a lot of different NFT organizations kind of do things and veer off of their roadmap to keep their holders or their community happy, only because trends and things happen so fast in the space. It's like you're kind of fighting to keep that person's attention and
Yeah.
engaged in your community, and it's challenging. It is very, very challenging. I'm not. I'll be quite frank and honest about that.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, the utility uh, right now in the space is helping. Well, one of the utilities I should say that a lot of people are looking for is helping them gain more resources as far as the NFT space goes, whether that's a membership to a trading platform or pre-sale spots to a collection. One of the things that we started looking to in Nubbies is actually helping new projects get some more visibility through some of the relationships that we can leverage that we've made in the space. So, uh, all in all, I don't think there is one real answer. People view utility in different ways. Some of the ways
Mm.
how I kind of look at utility is like what I mentioned earlier, the relationships you're able to establish, tools or services or a mission that you're able to build and cultivate with the community so you can kind of call it your own, so kind of like how
Mm. Oh,
that, yeah, no, someone's
yep.
giving me a call here.
Oh,
The
that's
the
okay.
MC, yeah, the MCMA
Yep.
platform, like that would is what I would say is your utility. When someone sees, Faiā, they think of that.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so I mean, like it's defined in several ways,
Mm.
and I feel like it's still really taking shape because when you think about it, like there's very minimal NFT organizations that actually provide quote unquote real utility with intellectual property that they've built themselves or they've
Agreed.
constructed those ecosystems on their own.
Yep. Yep. I would agree with that. And I think that's one of the more interesting things about this space is that, we obviously know there's a lot of hype. And, I think you hit the nail on the head around the attention side, because even Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this all the time, right? The attention economy. And I think even for some of my NFT friends, I know that they definitely have this stress or challenge around keeping their holders of the NFT collections engaged, because
Mm-hmm.
there was so much attention put to the launches, right? And I think definitely a lot of projects have mastered that, but it's what to do after. How do you keep things sustainable? And
Exactly.
yeah, and has that been essentially has that been the case for you guys as well? Are you also in a position of like, okay, well, we've got people who now have the NFTs from our collection. What next?
I would say so. There's hints of that. Um, because like even from one of the things I could say, so like you said, with the hype and pre-mint and whatnot, uh, there's a lot of people who are there for, I guess, to kind of get a pre-sale spot. But with that being said, when they're there, they give off the impression that they're going to be there, for life. Which I mean, like in that moment, it's like, wow, like we're cultivating this community with people who want to be here and help build out this brand, this vision. Well, come mint day, a lot of them, you see them listing and flipping and piecing out of the project. And that happens with so many projects. And even in the current market right now, there's with projects struggling to mint out and whatnot. But after the mint, things definitely did slow down. And there was that period where it's just like, wow, okay, it's time to start executing on some of these plans. And we had a pretty small Genesis collection, so it's not like we had a lot of funds that we're working with.
How small is
Um,
small for you
uh,
guys?
well, the Genesis collection was 999,
Okay.
and the mint price was at it was just under point one. I can't remember the exact price right now. So I mean, it's
Okay.
still a good amount of money to get a business going in its own right, but in
Yeah.
comparison to some of the larger collections at 5,000, 10K, Gary V's 50K V2
Yeah.
friends collection. So, I mean, and I'm just tying that back to kind of fighting for the attention, because you have to have different resources and strategies. And sometimes those, can cost some funds, and having that capital there to play with definitely helps. So you essentially have to get more creative. And, that's like we have our highs and lows
Mhm.
post mint, but we still do have those core 100 to 150 community members who are engaged in helping us build the brand out. And we do intend on releasing sequential, collect.
Oh,
Um,
Ro, you just cut out there for a second. Just the last 5 seconds.
okay, what was the last thing you heard?
It was just collections. That was the last thing I heard.
Okay, yeah. So I'll try to pick it up. Let's see. So did you hear about our Genesis collection of the 999? I spoke about that.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay, and you heard about me speaking about the capital that provided versus some of the larger collections capital.
No. So maybe from there.
Okay, all right, perfect. Our Genesis collection is 999, and the mint price was just below point 0.1. So that of course gives us funds to work with and start executing on more of our plans.
Oh, and
But
for
with
those, sorry, Ro, for those who don't know what minting is, would you be able to just explain what that is in the NFT world?
oh, yeah, for sure. So in layman's terms, what I always say minting is um, you are the first owner of whatever it may be. So for example, say uh, there is a pack of baseball cards that has been created and sealed and packaged, and not there is no official owner of them yet. You go ahead and purchase those baseball cards, and you open up that pack of cards, and you pull out a Michael Jordan card. You are the first owner of that card now, and you can then go and sell it on a secondary market if you want, or
Mm.
you can hold on to it for yourself. So essentially, you're the first person to own that piece of art. And in the NFT world, minting is you're the first person to purchase that NFT, that piece of digital art from the Ethereum smart contract.
Perfect. Thanks for explaining for folks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's we get so used to it, we just speak it like
Like it's
not
normal,
knowing
like
it.
like everyone would just get it, right? Like, because this is what
Yeah,
these are the questions we get from folks, who are new to this space,
yeah,
and they're often like, hold on, what is minting? So yeah, thank you for sharing, and yeah,
yeah.
sorry for
That's true.
interrupting you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, I live in a French speaking city, and I don't speak French, so I probably should be a little more aware of that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh,
yeah, just back to the collection.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, with their 99 and then a lot of other projects, they have collections where they mint out. It could be 10,000 pieces for their first mint, or Gary V's V2, I believe it's 50,000. So that gives them a larger um, cash injection, so to speak. Have to be
Mm,
careful with the words that we use, because I know there's still some regulations that are kind of gray areas.
yeah.
Um, but so like what we talked about earlier, fighting for the attention of your community members that will help you build the brand out, and it being a challenge. With some of these larger collections, they have a larger capital to work with that can help them with some of the resources to fight for that attention versus the smaller collections, which aren't working with as much capital, and they still have to fight for the attention of those community members to help build the brand out. So that's something that we've had to get creative with, and we have our highs and we have our lows. Nonetheless, we continue to build and help our members um, build with us the Nubbies community and ecosystem.
Love it. And here's an interesting question for you. If you took out the NFT part of, I guess, the project, do you think this could still work in a Web2 environment?
That's actually a really interesting question, and I don't remember. I've been looking for this book where I learned this because it's quite a fascinating um, discovery for me. But I'm gonna say no, only, and I mean it's definitely an opinionated answer, and I'll give you some background on it too. But I'm gonna say no for these reasons. So I was listening to a podcast or an audiobook. I can't remember which one it was, and I want to find the author um, really bad. But essentially, what he was talking about was cults. And anytime we hear the word cult, kind of like a negative feeling comes up instantaneously, but it's not necessarily something negative. Cult is just, where people of similar belief can bind together, and they're binded by that belief and they feel connected. So I'll give you some examples. So, for example, if you think of um, the Jewish um, uh,
Community?
communities, a
Mm.
lot of the men, they wear I don't want to butcher this name, but the yarmulke.
Yep.
You can correct me if, yeah. And that, when they have that on, it allows them to feel connected. The Amish people, they wear specific clothing, and they're connected by that. And the Muslim religion, um, a lot of the men, they wear what's the name of the hat again?
Gosh, yeah, how could I forget this too?
Yeah,
Yes, but that
yeah,
has.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And then even now, this could be a little controversial, but with the pandemic going on, the mask,
Mm.
and when people go in places and that mask isn't on, they feel like a little unease
Yeah.
inside. It's very strange. It's an unspoken language, but that's how cults
Mm.
are binded, and cults are binded by an article of clothing. And
Yeah.
this is something that's deep and on a deep subconscious kind of programming type level, and it's pretty deep. So the
Mm.
reason why I say no is because the NFT is what allows the communities to bind together, like on a deep level. Like someone can go, but um, without that NFT, like how connected are they really in the community? That's like the icing on the cake, so to speak. And can it happen without it? Yeah, probably. But
Yeah.
with the NFT, we're able to kind of build something around it and connect people, such as these other religions do.
Okay. So this is a lot more to do with identity than the technology itself, right? Because like essentially what you're saying, if we took out the blockchain aspect of all this, the I guess the artwork, right? The collections, they are just like JPEGs. I know that's often talked
Yeah,
a lot about,
yeah,
but they're just. I guess the NFT part is just about putting JPEGs on a blockchain, and I think
yeah.
I can acknowledge that there's been a cultural shift, right, in the way in which we value these things. So,
Hmm.
yeah, do you want to maybe speak on that in terms of like what you're witnessing in terms of like maybe cultural values shifting between what we would typically take on as an identity in like the non-digital world, the physical world, and now the digital and moving into more blockchain based.
Yeah, I would say it is definitely um, shifting, so to speak. And I mean, it's still a small percentage of the population, but with any change, it has to start somewhere. And it's pretty interesting because, to be honest, when I first saw NFTs, I'm like, yeah, it's just a JPEG. Like, why are people going crazy over this?
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
makes absolutely zero sense. And I'm confident that there's still a large amount of the population society that feels the exact same way. Um, but I mean, like when it comes down to it, I think kind of the term that's thrown out there loosely, utility, or even so, like
Yeah.
the meaning behind the JPEG is where I feel like the real value comes now. It's like
Mm.
having access to, a exclusive membership club that allows you to, tap into parts of yourself that you didn't know you existed, or connect with people, around the world, to help um, to work on a common goal. So I think that's where when people start learning the resources or the value behind that said JPEG, that's when I feel like it will start to evolve and grow. Because I really think a lot of companies can utilize this technology, and I feel like it doesn't just have to be Web3, such as NFTs or JPEGs. Because when you think about it, like people all say Web2 versus Web3, I don't look at it like that. I look at it as, Web3, we have more tools in our toolkit now to build our business and brand. Why can't we use a combination of both?
Yeah.
So this allows businesses, communities, whatever it is, who's utilizing, Web2, Web3, NFTs, JPEGs, to really accelerate their brand forward, to involve as many people as possible in the journey en route to whatever their goals may be. So when people understand the shift, like it's not necessarily a Web2 versus Web3, but it's more of, this technology is allowing us now to have more tools to involve you more in the process.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, right, the reality is that most of these Web3 labeled projects are predominantly on Web2 platforms, right? Discord is Web2. OpenSea is technically like still Web2. The only aspect that is on chain is, the transactions, but even the files themselves are not fully stored on chain. So like there are all these aspects where I think because we're in a transition, the hype is real. But yeah, maybe differentiating between Web 2 and Web 3 is probably not the best approach, because we still need a lot of Web 2 in order to like build out these communities, build out the brands, to build even the JPEGs, the digital artwork, like all of that is still happening on Web 2 platforms.
Exactly.
So it'd be like dishonest for us to say like, any of the projects are truly like Web3, because essentially from what, we've been seeing, like truly Web3 projects would, utilize fully on-chain aspects and transactions,
exactly.
and so forth.
Exactly. And for it to be on-chain, it depending on what chain they're operating on, of course, it wouldn't be sustainable. Most projects right now are on Ethereum, like that. It's just not sustainable.
No. So. And it's fascinating, right? Like what do you think, knowing what we know about the fact that Ethereum just like does not scale, Ethereum 2.0 keeps getting delayed because, to be honest, I think they have a fundamental flaw which won't allow them to scale in the way that they may want to. But yeah, like, I guess, what are your thoughts on that aspect, like in terms of the popularity of these chains versus the reality?
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum definitely is the most popular chain right now in the space, but it does have a lot of flaws at the same time, man. One of the reasons that I've heard that they're struggling to scale, it kind of stems from a legal standpoint too. Yes. Because they have the proof of correct. I also mixed the two up: proof of stake and the proof of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, proof of work is one of the reasons why they are not quote unquote a security. So if they change over, then they can fall into really 100%. So I personally think that's one of the reasons why, and I think in the Ripple case that was brought up, so that's kind of there now, and it was an argument made. So if they were to change over, you already know who's going to come knocking at their door.
Yeah, and for those, of course, listening, Ripple is another cryptocurrency, another blockchain-based project, and they have been in courts for a good number of years because essentially, the SEC, right, is trying to fine Ripple while kind of granting this exemption from Ethereum. And I think Ripple is saying, well, hey, if you're saying we're security, what about Ethereum, right? And that seems to be the big issue right now. And I would completely agree that in this space, I think what I find most fascinating is from a data standpoint, right? Because everything can be on chain, there are data laws that already exist that cover everything that's happening within the blockchain space, right? But I think it's taken regulators time to understand the technology to be able to go, oh, actually pre-existing, laws and rules may already apply, and
Exactly.
if Ethereum goes to a proof of stake, I just do not see that working well. And not only that, proof of stake will eventually lead to the type of centralization that they kind of have not wanted to occur. It will happen. Yeah, it will happen in a way that they didn't account for. But yeah, this is why what's popular isn't always true, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's true. And it kind of makes you question, like, I mean, like, I do enjoy Ethereum, but,
yeah,
10, 15, 20 years down the line, like, it's kind of a gray area as to what it can be.
yeah. And I think that is the downside. Like Ethereum, I do love the developer community in Ethereum. Like so many tools and applications are being built for Ethereum. But I think because of this technology, one thing that is difficult is that I often look at blockchain as like plumbing, right? And all of the different communities have kind of created these, fan groups for each of the projects. And we've applied like our modern day marketing and advertising and like attention grabbing behaviors onto essentially plumbing. Like if you literally applied this to like different plumbing companies, like it would be, you just ask why,
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, for plumbing, all you really want is plumbing that just works and works well. Because the better it works, the longer it will work, right, over time. And it means the less that you have to rip out the entire like infrastructure underneath, right, in order to change things.
Exactly.
But that is not what's happening in the space. People are just like, oh yeah, like I like the idea of this plumbing system. So, whether it works or not, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll just apply startup mentality.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like one of my cousins. He always says like he wants results. Like he's not here for pipe dreams, hopes and dreams. Like which is, I mean, what a lot of these projects building the next game or whatnot. And I mean, like I'm all for it and I love it, but some of them have yet to execute on things that they're going to say, and it takes time, and time is one of the things that a lot of the individuals in this space, or I should say patience, is one of the things a lot of the individuals in this space don't have, because the next shiny objects literally around the corner.
100%. And I think for those of us who've been like in this space for a while, like I'll kind of go back to 2017 when there was the ICO craze. Do you remember that time period by any chance?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, right. And so it's interesting to see the development in terms of fundraising channels, because ICOs, right, were used to raise funds. And many of the people who did raise funds, many of them ended up going to jail, but you don't hear about that. And then, so from the ICO days, it went then to IDOs. It went to like a whole bunch of other 3-letter acronyms. Like it was kind of interesting to see, like everybody was trying to like avoid regulation and stuff, right? So they just changed the acronyms so that they wouldn't have to be, under rule of law anywhere. I think there was STO, like the security token offering, and then there was a initial exchange, IEO, an initial exchange offering, right? There's that. And then NFTs do seem to be kind of like the latest fundraising mechanism, essentially, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So what have you observed, right? From if we were to strip away all the jargon, right? Like just from a fundraising mechanism, what have you observed in terms of shifts in behavior, or maybe just the migration of the same type of behavior but to a new area?
So yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So from the fundraising aspect of things, like you said, you nailed on the head. It's really just the changing of the acronyms, really, because it's still this brand, this company, this organization bringing in money. But one of the things kind of add to that is this has brought in a completely new group of, I guess you want, you can't call them accredited, but a new group of
Mm,
investors, really,
mm,
a lot more of the younger generation. And it's not to say they each individually have tens of millions of dollars sitting around, but collectively, if one person brings in $200, that can add up really quickly, depending on
yeah.
how large your collection size is. So it's really brought in a new wave of investors.
Mm,
And by no means are they, I guess you can say, well-informed investors, so to speak. But that's one of the things I've observed in this new NFT craze, because it is essentially, bringing in funds for a project or your idea. And I feel it's creative. I love it, but it's just now when it comes to, executing and being transparent with the funds, I feel like there's just a level of professionalism that's still lacking. And in such a space where we're preaching Web3 and transparency, I feel like a lot of um, projects. Well, I don't like using the word projects. I like for organization only because there's projects within an organization. But a lot of these NFT businesses, organizations, um, I, I feel like they need to commit to a level of transparency that uh, has been preached in this space, because essentially, like, it's just changing of words. Like an NFT is a stock, if you really want to think about it. Um,
yeah.
but you're a publicly traded company from day one if you take the NFT route, whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
if you
Yep.
want to look at it like that.
And that's the thing. I think most people don't look at it like that, right? They just
Yeah,
think, oh, it's
yeah,
just new technology, rules don't
yeah,
apply to us. It's like, God, no, it's just they haven't caught up yet.
exactly.
Like I often give the example of crowdfunding back in the day with Kickstarter and those type of platforms. Like what's happening in the NFT world is essentially, if you want to look at like a similar industry, crowdfunding can kind of give clues as to what will happen next. With
Mm,
crowdfunding, back in the day, essentially Kickstarter just made it really simple for people to invest in products, right? And the same sort of logic and reasoning came into that industry around like regulations and stuff, and they were like, well, it's not like typical investing because at least they're building a product, and they had the tiers and stuff. So essentially, for $20, you would get this sort of benefit, and then for $100, so on and so forth. I think that'll probably end up happening in the NFT space too, if they, try to learn from how the rules and regulations apply to crowdfunding. But I think that collision of like an actual product, a digital collectible, and then the technology around blockchain, it seems like that's what has created this unique niche here for NFTs compared
mm,
to Kickstarter. Whereas it'd be interesting. Imagine if Kickstarter all of a sudden just enabled the ability to do NFTs. I wonder what would happen.
yeah, seriously, that's actually a great point. I'd be curious to see what would happen also.
Yeah, because if you think about it, right, the only thing that's probably missing is just the wallet integrations and infrastructure
Hmm.
there. But if they literally just had that as an attachment, like or a new option for folks when they're looking to purchase a product, I think they'd probably do a lot better because they've already had years developing out that entire experience. And I mean, I remember in the early days, like I was looking at new projects constantly, and I was like, "Oh, I want to buy this one," even if I didn't like really want it. It's just because it was cool, right
Yeah,
at the time.
yeah.
But with those, at least they were products, like physical products, right? Now it's literally
Hmm.
just digital products in the NFT
Hmm.
space. Um,
That's very true.
so, okay, here's another good segue right into the next question. NFT time physical products. I have noticed, like folks like Nike, they're doing some really interesting things where they're combining the NFT, like the Nike NFTs, with their physical shoe products. Like I think what I
Hmm.
was seeing is you buy an NFT, and then with the NFT, you can actually change like stuff on your physical shoe. I don't know what they're
Mm.
using for that, but it's like it sounds impressive. Um, but yeah, what do you see happening trends wise in terms of maybe like NFTs and physical coming together?
Yeah, I definitely see that as the next trend, and trends happen so frequently in the space. I mean, like I feel like they
Yeah.
happen in any space, but they're really like parabolic in this space, so to speak. But the need for for the physical aspect attached to the NFTs is definitely something I see on the horizon. I've spoken with a couple of projects and they've talked about this also, and it definitely is something that's been on their mind. So I see it coming. The only issue with it is uh, like what you just mentioned, literally how Nike is doing it with their products, being able to choose and I guess tweak certain aspects of it
Mm.
is with the physical products. I feel like where the emphasis needs to be is the experience. Because
Yep.
if a said NFT project just drops a t-shirt, like it's like, okay, yeah, I can go to the store and buy this t-shirt, like it's no big deal.
Mm. Mm.
And when it comes to physical products, it could be a logistics nightmare because your holders
Mm.
are literally all over the world.
Yep.
So you definitely have to be, creative with it and have the right teams and people in place,
Hmm.
and really put more of your effort and time into the experience, because the experience, I feel, is what will make um, it even more powerful,
Yeah.
and what will kind of
Agreed.
separate you, from the others, so to speak. But yeah, I definitely think there is a need there to tie something physical to these products, because it is digital.
Mm.
And I mean, as fun as and fascinating as exciting it is, it's a lot of money people are putting into this, so
Yeah. Yeah.
getting something physical is definitely uh, should be a part of the journey, the process of what a lot of these
Agreed.
organizations are doing.
Agreed. And it's interesting, right? Because we had this, like, over the last couple of decades, this whole transition of like all these physical brick and mortar stores saying like, oh, you got to get on the internet, you got to go digital. But now, as a result of COVID, a whole bunch of people being stuck inside indoors, and only having digital, there does seem to be a craving for more physical experiences, right? And
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's a good thing, right? Because we shouldn't forget our physical planet, our physical world. But I think this is where Web3 gets interesting with the mixed realities, augmented realities. And I think the NFT space, because we're dealing with digital products, if we can create a brand experience that connects the physical, it'll just be a lot, I don't know, more interesting, I think, in my opinion. And
Yeah, I
and might
think
help with the
so.
engagement as well, right? After the NFT sales, maybe that's something that will help assist with the kind of like ongoing engagement.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, because the engagement is key,
Yeah.
and that's something I see is common. Like, depending on what it is, the engagement has its ebbs and flows. Whether that person is getting something like it's a giveaway, the engagement's usually sky high, versus you actually putting some meaningful content out there. Most people kind of just skim over it, because one of the things I've learned is a lot of people just they don't like to read, so it's just like, how can you keep people engaged without um, uh, forcing them, or with it not being something they quote unquote have to read. I mean, like,
Yeah.
sometimes reading obviously is important, but it's just, again, how can we get creative in getting this content out, which is giving them some immense value, but they may not see it as such. But um, yeah, that's definitely another topic of discussion as far as the engagement goes.
Good answers, man. And I think we just got a few questions more. And the next one is, when it comes to the NFT project and the NFT communities, how did you guys actually reach out to your users, your investors, potential investors? Was it mostly Twitter? Was it, Discord groups? How did you reach those new buyers?
Yeah, so what we did, it was more so reaching out to other communities, and just kind of sharing our vision and what it is we're setting out to build. And that kind of led to us meeting uh, founders of, you know I guess you could say, more established communities in the space. And that was just kind of like a domino effect, and it just kept opening more and more and more doors, as far as getting out, what we're trying to release into the marketplace goes. And then our mint date was actually kind of strange. So our pre-sale spots, like it started very, very slow, which I mean, for me personally, that's okay. Like I don't mind. But in the space, a lot of founders and projects, they panic over these things because sometimes it can be hard to recover from. And I only think it's hard
Mm.
to recover from depending on how you react. Um,
And how many weeks beforehand was the pre-sale? Like, how long was that period?
it was about 2 weeks. Like we're
Okay.
really ramping up like aggressively.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, and then so when we started the pre-sale spots on our website, it was going very, very slow. And then as soon as we opened up to the public, it minted out within less than less than 5 minutes, and
Wowzers.
I mean, like, yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds cool and all, but that's, it comes and goes. So
Mm, mm.
the real work, it starts after you mint out and you're starting to cultivate the community. But yeah, the strategy really was to connect with, other founders and community, um, I guess, impact individuals and communities that can kind of connect you with others. And it is kind of tough to do that when you're starting out and you're small, but
Yeah.
you just have to keep going. And honestly, all it takes is to meet one person, and that one person will open up more doors. And you start to build relationships with a lot of these other, projects or people in the ecosystem, so to speak, that you have resources and connections, for life.
100%. And were partnerships, a big part of the pre-sale period, or more so afterwards? Did you leverage any partnerships as part of this?
Uh, yes. With the term partnership is just I always find it so funny because I see a lot of projects you throw that word out there,
Yeah.
and the partnership was really just exchanging pre-sale spots. So
Yep.
like
Exactly.
so like how much of a partnership is it really, um
Yes.
but yeah, I would say the exchange of pre-sale spots is definitely a thing, and the cover up word for it is partnerships. But I'm starting to see more actual partnerships happening now in the Web3 space where you utility from a specific project is able to be utilized in another NFT's community as long as you hold the NFT. So like for example, because for the listeners that may be like confusing, so there's an NFT that I own. It's a Llamaverse. I can use the NFT now to log in and utilize the tools of another NFT project called Alpha Sharks.
Mhm.
And Alpha Sharks, they built like it's where that you can get a bunch of data to make trades in the NFT space with NFTs. So I don't actually have to own an Alpha Shark NFT to get into their ecosystem,
Nice.
which you usually do. But if I log in using the MetaMask and quote unquote Web3 technology, I can get access to their ecosystem now. So that would more so be somewhat of a partnership. A partnership should look like. Um, but with that being said, in the strategy uh, prior to rollout, exchange of pre-sale spots, whitelist spots was definitely something agreed upon, and it helps to benefit each community so that we can, sell out the spots and help each other's prospective communities grow.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, no, that's a good share, I think, for people who are looking to, launch their own NFT projects and stuff. That I guess these are some of the tactics that are used to help out with the
Mhm.
launches. Okay, so okay, question around the space itself in terms of what has been the most surprising thing you've learned about the space in terms of behind the scenes.
Hmm. It's a great question. Um, hmm. The most surprising thing. I mean, I kind of saw it on the outside, but just how much of a copycat um, industry this is, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it happens everywhere. But like there are some projects who are innovating and doing new and cool things, uh, but majority of the space, it's a lot of people copying ideas from somebody else in the space who started it up first. So I guess it's more so, like me saying like I would challenge different projects and founders. It doesn't have to be something crazy and different, but kind of start thinking outside the box a little bit, because those ideas can really go a long way. And of course, it depends on what your project is. Like, are you branding yourself as like an alpha server, which alpha servers in the space is just like a community you can join to get insights and resources into different NFT projects? Or if you're saying you're going to build the next, like I was on a Moonbirds Twitter Spaces the other day, and one of their really focuses is building out actual Web3 based tools. And it's funny enough, you said
Nice.
it. Discord is a Web2, and they're saying like we're in the space preaching all Web3, 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 but then we're using Web2 tools. Like that doesn't make any sense. So
Yep.
Moonbirds is really focusing their attention and efforts on building actual Web3 tools, like a Discord Web3 tool, for example. Is like something that he threw out there, and he actually he Alexis Onion. I don't know if I said his last name correctly.
Oh, the
He
Reddit
just
guy?
exactly he just
Yep.
he invested $10 million into Proof to join the Moonbirds team to help build that infrastructure out. So it's
That's
pretty cool to
wild.
see.
Yeah.
Exactly, and he what he's done. He's done with Reddit, and then Kevin Rose and himself has done very well in the, I guess you could say, the Web2 space. So, and that's kind of what I mean by referring to copycat. Like there's not
Mm.
really anything new, or like, and that's why I always even at Nubbies, like working on our own intellectual properties, conversation that we're always having as far as what it will look like. But yeah, it's a copycat space, whether people want to agree upon it or not. And there's only a handful of organizations that are really building out new and different things. So, but it,
Yeah.
it still is the Wild Wild West, and it's it's wide open for anyone to come in here right now and build a powerful, organization and community.
100%. And I think I saw some interesting NFT stats recently saying that like there was like 1 to 5% of the ecosystem. They're like the only ones who are actually like making millions. Like the rest are all like under a couple $100 or something like that. And
Yeah,
I was like, whoa, that's those are some pretty interesting stats. If that really
yeah,
is
it's
the
crazy.
case.
Yeah,
Mm,
no, it's crazy. Like a lot of projects are just coming in and they're just sucking the liquidity out of the market.
hmm.
So
Yep. I heard there's like
like,
thousands a day being launched as well currently.
exactly, yeah,
Oof.
yeah, it's true. It's tough.
Um, yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. But you're in the thick of it, so I'm sure you're learning a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every single day, and I'm grateful for it, because
Mm,
these are experiences and knowledge that I'll be able to take forward with me for life.
100%. 100%. Okay, so good segue into our final question. And the final question is, if you had any advice for folks looking to make the transition from Web 2 to Web 3, like yourself, what advice would you give them?
Um, Definitely don't try to rush into it, uh, based upon fear of missing out, but really try to immerse yourself in it. And what I mean by that is, invest in a couple of communities, meet a few people, and take your time to really understand how the market works. Because a mistake I've seen is someone could be like, um, they could rush into it thinking like, oh yeah, it's just a JPEG. Oh, we can get a lot of these people to buy our NFT, and boom, we're in it. We're in NFT business. But it's way more than that. And to be honest, I think it's way more work than running a business in the quote unquote Web2 space versus the Web3 space. If we wanted to break it down like that, it literally never sleeps. You're gonna have investors, shareholders, stakeholders from literally all over the world. So
Yeah.
really, really take your time to understand the space, build relationships, friendships, and then you can make more informed, decisions. And it's not say don't take action, but just more so take a little bit of time to really understand how it works before going full steam ahead.
Love it. Well, Ro, thank you so much for your time. I was planning to only do this for about a half hour, but we've gone to an hour, which is great, which means that, we've had a lot to talk about, of course.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
yeah, no, thanks again for your time. Are there any links or things that you'd like to share with our listeners or promote?
Yeah, definitely. Your listeners can find me on Twitter. I'm sure you could probably put in the show notes, but it's Ro
Definitely.
in the Meta. Um, and that's mainly where anyone can connect with me. We could talk, shoot me a DM. DMs are always open. And yeah, they could also check out the Nubbies page. It's Nubbies NFT on Twitter also. And yeah, I'm always open to have a conversation, and yeah, looking forward to continuing to build my relationship with you and everybody on the Faiā team.
Love it. Thanks a lot, Ro. And hopefully we'll actually have another session with you in the future, see how things have
Yeah,
developed since this recording.
yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it.
All right, bud. Thanks a lot.